you. Let's talk a little bit about what our workshop is going to cover today. So we're first going to talk about a tea table. And I am going to explain to you how important a tea table is because what you're doing is you're taking your skills and matching it to what the job is looking for. In addition to that, we're going to talk about the three different advantages to networking. Truth is that networking is still the fastest and quickest way to get a job. I want to talk to you about understanding when and why it's important to leave off some of that experience and qualifications that go beyond the company's needs. I'm going to talk to you about the real common pitfalls of being called overqualified. What does the employer actually mean by that? And then we're also going to talk about how do you successfully keep the momentum going? Because let's get real, looking for a job is a job. It is one of the hardest jobs out there, especially since you're not getting paid for doing it. But then in addition to that, the momentum is hard to keep up. So I want to encourage you to reach out to your local career force because, boy, we understand. In addition to that, I know that when you speak to one of our job counselors on the career force location, that you're going to feel better about your job search and be able to keep that momentum going. Before I go on to the next slide, I just want to briefly talk to you about your local career force. We have services that you may not be aware of that are in-house. One of them is our veterans services. So first, if you are a veteran, thank you. Thank you for your service. Second off, we have vet reps who have additional resources that are available to you. So if you are a veteran, please reach out to our veterans rep. Uh, we also have what's called vocational rehabilitation services, and then we also have the dislocated worker program. So without getting into great detail, any of those programs, if you're interested in them, in that follow-up email that you're going to receive, you're also going to get what's called career force locations. A lot of people have never even been to the local career force. So in that follow-up email with the career force locations, you're going to be able to figure out which career force is closest to you, where you live, if you haven't already figured that out. So let's get into some good news. So before we get into the good news, I would like to hear from you. Just one word, describe how your job search has been going. And please don't use any words that you wouldn't use in a professional interview. And Jennifer, if you wouldn't mind just telling me what some of the comments are, that would be great.
Okay, let's see. Slow, confusing, frustrating, challenging, longer than expected.
Yes.
A lot of slow and challenging feedbacks.
Yes. You know, years ago, we all used to be able to go. My dad used to call me, Glory, you need to get out there and get a job, hit the streets. That's what they used to call it. And so, what that meant was that I would just go walk up and down, literally walk up and down the business area of the town and get applications, fill them out, and hand them in. Things have changed in a big, big way. Hardly anybody takes a paper application anymore. Most of applying is online. Many people don't even know how to turn on a computer, let alone apply online. And how do you upload your resume or download it? Do you send a cover letter? Do you not? That's where our expertise comes in. But I want to point out to you that note that everyone who did comment was talking about how it's not a fun place to be. Now, one of the things that I want, if you don't remember anything else out of this whole workshop, I want you to remember that the wisdom you have, you paid a high price for. In addition to that, the employer could make a lot of money off of your wisdom, and then you can make some money too. So, you know, when I'm talking to people, which I call people throughout the state of Minnesota who are recently unemployed, many of them will tell me in their conversation about they're too old. But they don't believe that, but they believe that subconsciously they do. So they get into talking to me about how they're too old to actually get a job. And yet they're the same age as me. So let's talk about some good news and how Harvard Business Review looks at the seasoned employer. So historically, they used to view our group as with skepticism, thinking that, okay, you're only going to be here for a little while. You're only here because you have a crisis, you want to remedy that crisis, and then you're going to go on to something else or go back into retirement. Um, one of the things that others are starting to recognize is that our strengths, one, we're adaptable, two, we're dependable, we're men and women of our word, we show up on time. Also, we're dedicated. Excuse me, we're loyal. That is not happening anymore. And a lot of times when I'm working with a younger group of people who are looking for employment, they're job jumpers, for lack of a better term. They will actually go down the street for a quarter more an hour, even though they don't have benefits down the street. So a lot of this stuff and not stuff, but wisdom that we have. One, we learned it the hard way. So I say we paid a high price for it. It's important that you consider all of the skills that you have instead of the skills that you don't. When I'm talking to you on a one-on-one basis, I will ask you, what types of skills can you, or do you have, or what types of skills have you done in the past? You'll say stuff to me that you don't have. Well, Gloria, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. And you really struggle with telling me what you can do. I also want you to consider what has changed since you last looked for work. Well, first off, matching your skills to the skills that are listed on the job description, that has changed. It used to be where we did one resume and we just sent that out to everyone. Now we don't do that anymore. What we do instead is we tailor your resume towards the job you're applying for. Now, people often, when they first say that to them, they're like, good grief. I just spent 2 weeks on my resume. Now you got it. You're telling me I have to tailor one. What are you telling me that I can't send the resume that I just worked 2 weeks on? Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. The resume you worked 2 weeks on, we're going to call that the foundation. So we're going to build the house, right? So we've got a good, strong foundation, and we're not going to throw that resume away. What we're going to do instead is we're going to build off of that resume. So we are going to take the information that the job is looking for and make sure that's on the resume and delete the stuff that doesn't apply to the job. Oh man, I'll tell you, it's painful too. Some of those things that we have on our resume we're proud of. That's why they're there. Sometimes that's the reason we're not getting the interview. And I'm going to get more into this. Networking, both excuse me, I said that wrong, both in person and online. So one of the things I want to just point out to you, and I'm sure you already know this and you are practicing your common sense, but please make sure your social media, if you have Facebook, LinkedIn, make sure that your profiles are appropriate and that you don't have any inappropriate uh, pictures or comments. Try to stay out of the political world. Uh, when I was taught how to be a good interviewer, I was taught to check your Facebook. I was taught to check all of your social media and also give me an indicator of, are you who you really say you are when I'm interviewing you, or are you just presenting that way to get the job? And then the other thing that has changed is teleconferencing. Goodness, we're going to talk just briefly about how interviews have changed, and that's through teleconferencing. But here's the great thing with teleconferencing, we're doing it right now. So we're going to get a little more familiar with it if you haven't in the past. And then the most important thing that's changed is you. So when I ask you about your skills, can you say them to me? You know, many of us were raised that we are not to be proud, but we're to be humble. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that that's a great way to be. But the interview is when you need to be able to tell me your skills. And you need to use I am statements like, I am punctual, I am dependable, I am the best person for this job. You need to, one, tell yourself that, look in the mirror as you're saying it so that you believe it. And then two, that is not being prideful. Instead, what it is as the interviewer, I'm taking that as great. So this person not only knows how to do the job, they are confident in the skills they have. And they're confident enough to where they can apply them on the job. Very, very important resources. You know, Jennifer, I just wanted to check in with you real quick before I get into the next slide. Have we gotten any questions?
We did get two questions that come up. One question was, how can loyalty be conveyed in the application process. For example, I worked for a long time as a contractor, so my resume has numerous short-term gigs and it doesn't appear to be loyal.
Oh, that's a great question. So if you have worked several years as a contractor, that's what I want you to have on there on your resume is contractor, not every individual job that you've had being a contractor. So I want you to engulf it instead of breaking it out. Now, when you're at the interview is when you can discuss it more, but your resume is only as good as getting you the interview. Now, one thing that you said was application. When I fill out the application, when you fill out any application, you're always going to put in there the truth and what they're asking for. But again, if you're a contractor, can't you just put that on there as a huge umbrella and then all of your contracted jobs are underneath it, but I don't need to know every employer? So if you have more questions about that, reach out to us after. And did you say you had one more, Jennifer?
Yeah, there was another one that came in and says, how do we keep the tailored resume to not sound like it was done by AI? I've had AI full on make up things I've done to align with the job description.
I love it. So one of the things is that AI is good and AI has some bad points to it, right? So one of the bad points that I noticed is that if you put your resume through AI and have it tailor it towards the job, you need to go line by line, precept by precept, making sure that it is one, you, your belief, and two, that it is in the same type of way that you speak. So let me give you a good example. One of my supervisors just recently interviewed someone, and the person that was being interviewed was reading all of the questions off of AI. So somehow they were having where my supervisor would ask the question and it would go through AI, and then the answer was there. Well, what happened was the person was reading the answers and it turned out it wasn't the right answer. Not only that, the interviewer did not even agree with what they were saying. And they said, I'm not even agreeing with what I just said. Can I re-say that? And my supervisor said, are you reading that from somewhere? And then the person was honest and said, yes, I'm getting my answers off of AI. So we need to be sensitive when we're doing resumes and tailoring them. You can go by AI suggestions, that's fine, but let's take it a step further. Let's say that the company has a software where it has the applicant tracking system, and that is where AI is reading your resume to see if you qualify for the job. The important part is you take that job description and you're going to use it as nuggets. So when it is asking for something, you're going to put that on your resume. So this is a great segue into this next slide. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So when we have the job description, you can see that on the job script, here it's called the job listing, job description, same thing. The job description is asking for you to be able to recruit team members. Okay, so we're going to pretend that we're applying for this job. Then your answers are on the right-hand side. So you guys, I seriously use this T-table and T-chart slide. And what I do is I just take a blank piece of paper, and I do this with my clients a lot, and just draw a T right down the center of it. And on the left-hand side, I write what the job posting or job listing or job description is looking for. And then I'm going to write how that person qualifies. So let's use number one as an example. So it says recruiting team members. And you can see that my qualifications, we're going to pretend this is me. I exceeded all recruitment goals by attending job fairs and sourcing new applicants from various job boards. That is a quick and easy read. I can look at that and see that the person qualifies because they're using same and similar terms. Now, another thing that I want to throw in there is if you can talk about percentages or numbers, that makes your story even more powerful. So I always say that you are the director of the story in my head. So viewing you, first off, are you talking me out of not hiring you because you're too old? There was a gentleman that I talked to recently, and I said to him, do you know, one, you're younger than me. Two, that you've told me over 9 times in this phone conversation that you're too old to go back to work. And is that what you believe? And he said to me, seriously, what are you, counting? And I said, yes, I am. You just told me 9 times you're too old to go to work, but that you have to go to work. Why would I want to hire you? You're too old. Like, oh, oh, oh. I could tell his feathers were getting ruffled. And I said, I can tell your feathers are getting ruffled. I'm not trying to ruffle your feathers. I'm pointing out to you, do you believe you're too old to go to work? And if you do, are you convincing me not to hire you? Or are you telling me that you're the best person for the job? Let me take it one step further. Previous to this job, I was the operations manager of a nonprofit. I ended up interviewing someone one time who I did not know how old this person was, nor did I care. What mattered to me was, can you come in and do the job? Turns out she was 77 years old when I hired her. And do you know that she's still there to this day? I even had other staff come up to me and say to me, well, Glory, what did you hire her because you felt sorry for her? I said, why? Well, first off, don't speak that way. Age does not matter. The reason I hired her is because she convinced me she's the best person for the job. And guess what? She was. So I'm just saying, what are you telling yourself? That comes out. It is very, very important for you to be careful on what you're saying to yourself. Also, can I figure out how old you are when I look at your resume? Boy, I have people really struggle with this one, including me. There were some things I had to delete off my resume that didn't apply to this job when I applied. Boy, it was painful because I was proud of the accomplishments that I had done. But if it doesn't apply, you need to be careful. And I'm going to give you a real life example after I complete this slide. So I only want you to go back 10 years, at the most 15 years. Now I have people get all upset. I had a gentleman one time, he was a construction worker, and he's like, Lori, I worked 33 years in construction, and you're telling me that I can't put that on my resume? And I said, yep, straight up, that's what I'm telling you. He's like, well, you know what? I am really, really mad right now because I worked really hard to be able to say I worked for a company for 33 years. I said, you know what? I'm very proud of you that you did. But here's the deal. If you are telling them that you worked for 33 years, I can very easily figure out that you're probably around 53, 54 years old, thinking you probably started at 1920, working, and you don't know where I stand. So you don't know if I want to hire a young whippersnapper or if I want to hire a seasoned worker. But your resume is only as good as getting you the interview. And if I'm not interviewing you because I think that you're too old, your resume didn't do much good. What you want to do is you want to have your resume get you the interview so that when you are there in real life person, one, I can't just throw you out like it's on your resume. Second off, now you have the opportunity to convince me that you are the best person for the job, that your wisdom is going to make the company a lot of money. Do you realize that a lot of people that I work with on mock interviews right now, they are not saying, I can make you a lot of money. Instead, what they're saying is, what you going to do for me? What is the pay? Do I get benefits? You guys, I'd interview people and they asked me if they could get $100 advance. I hadn't even hired the person. These are real true stories. And then I also would like for you to consider doing a combination resume instead of chronological. So, we were taught years ago that you do chronological. So you take your most recent job and you go back till the day you were born, practically. Well, again, we aren't doing that anymore. So now we're going to go back 10, at the most 15 years. And the combination resume is actually taking the chronological and the functional and combine them. And what I love about it is that we as human beings tend to look at the center of the page first and then go up towards the top and then review the whole page. So the center of the page on the combination resume points out all of your skills, and it can be a very powerful resume. So again, that's going to also come in your follow-up email tomorrow. So you'll get a template of the combination resume just so you can get a better idea of what that actually looks like. So before I get into networking, I just want to talk real quick to you about the forklift driver. So I told you that I want you to tailor your resume towards the jobs that you're applying for. I had a gentleman one time who was applying for a retail store position that I had open. But on his resume, all he talked about was how great of a forklift driver he was. I mean, the guy could do everything under the sun with a forklift and many different types. So, like a pallet jack, a forklift, but he had it all listed. But we didn't own a forklift. I didn't interview him because I assumed, and that's what hiring managers have to do, is I assumed that my little retail store position probably doesn't pay as good as a forklift driver. And as soon as he got a forklift driver position, he'd probably bail on me and take that job. So I want to remind you that you one need to stay within the job description. Don't present yourself as something else, even though you're proud of it. I've told people in the past, if you're proud of being that forklift driver and it's important to you to have it on your resume, then take that resume and frame it. Put it on your wall so you can take a look at it. But don't be sending it out because companies, remember, it costs them money to hire you, train you, and have you do the job the way they want you to do it. Now, in addition to that, you want to let them know that you're going to be with them for when they ask you, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? Don't say retired, even though that's your intent. Good grief, you guys. All of us have had plans in our life that we were going to do something at a certain time, and lo and behold, it didn't turn out that way. Now, if you want to retire in 3 to 5 years, great, wonderful. But for the interview's sake, when they say, what are your career aspirations? I want you to say, I see myself working for you, and hopefully I will have gotten a promotion. Now, it's easy to say, well, Glory, so what are you telling me to lie? No, I'm not telling you to lie. I'm telling you to remember that all we're guaranteed is right now, here, today. Do we even know if we're going to be alive in 3 to 5 years? Nope, we don't. Do we have plans for 3 to 5 years? Yep, we do. But you know what? For the interview's sake, I want you to say that you're working for them. I am working for you, and hopefully I will have gotten a promotion. Now let's talk about networking. So one of the things that I absolutely love about networking is it still is very effective. Harvard did a study and they said that it's up to 85%. 85% of all people being hired was still through networking. Isn't that interesting? So I want you to ask yourself, do I have the competitive skills that it takes to get this next job that I am really interested in? If you don't have the competitive skills, reach out to us because we may be able to help you with the dislocated worker program. There's all kinds of different programs that are built within each county. So we could at least connect you with some of those resources. Ask yourself, do I want this job? Boy, oh boy, there's times when I would ask at an interview, why do you want this job? And do you know that the most common answer was for the money? Well, obviously, we all work for money, but you don't bring that up at the interview. When they ask, why do you want this job? That's the time for you to build up the company. Also, it's important with networking, you get some insider tips. So, one of the things that I absolutely loved was when I was the operations manager of the nonprofit, I also was in charge of, I think it was like 65 to 75 volunteers. The volunteers would come in and they would actually run the food shelf. Now, in that role, um, there were certain times that you were expected to show up. You were expected to, pack the grocery bags, for instance. I had people helping me with ordering the food. I had people helping me with picking up the food, all those different moving parts that were going on. And if you came in and you did volunteer work with me and you were looking for a job and you let me know that, boy, oh boy, I would have business owners come in and they would give a donation and they would tell me straight up, Glory, God, I just so happened to have a job opening. I had the guy, walk off the job this morning or whatever. Do you know if anybody's looking for a job? Well, you know what? I would very, very easily recommend you. You were volunteering for me. I knew you were a man or a woman of your word. I knew that you showed up on time. I knew I could trust you, and I knew that you would do the job the way I asked you to do it. And for the employer, it's so easy then because one, they're going off my recommendation, but then two, they don't have to post the job. They say that it actually takes about 6 months to replace you when you do quit a job. First, when they said that 6 months, good grief, I don't think that's true. Till I started having to replace some of the people that were retiring or whatever. It's true. Takes close to 6 months to get the new employee up and rolling. Another thing that is so beautiful about networking is that it creates a relationship where they think of you first. So if a job does come into their world, they're going to think of you and they're going to say, yes, I do. When they say, do you know if anybody is looking for a job? Yes, I do. Let me reach out to that person and I'll have them get a hold of you. Would you like them to apply through resume, application, online? See where I'm going with this? Jennifer, I think this is a great time just to check in with you and see if we have any more questions.
Hey, Glory. So we had a lot of questions regarding like the age on the resume and stuff. A lot of questions on that. So
Okay.
people are wondering whether if they worked like more than 20 years at a company, if they should only put 10 to 15 years of work for that
Yes.
particular company.
Yes.
Uh,
So what you want to put is either 10 plus or 15 plus. And I mean the plus sign. So remember that your resume is only a snapshot of who you are. It is not your, whole birth history from the moment you were born up to today. Your resume is only a snapshot, and it's also showing the employer how you're going to fit in really well with the company. Now, you guys, I want to make something really clear here. Please do not confuse resume and application. They're two different things. An application is just that. It's where you fill in the information that the company's asking for you. A resume is a snapshot of who you are. Two different things. Okay. So, in other words, if you graduated from high school in 1983, that should not be on there. 1983, take that off. If you work for a company for 20 plus years, you're going to say experience, you're going to say excellent experience with 15 plus years of, and then you're going to get into what the actual experience is. Okay. I hope you understood that.
yeah.
Jennifer, I can take one more question if
Um,
you want.
and then, they were asking about how to like bypass the dates and stuff when it comes to like education and employment during the application when they ask
Yes.
that information.
Yeah. So on the application, you can't. The only one that you can birthday. Okay. So what I run is if you were born day, for instance, so it would be 0401, and then I would put 00 in the date for the year. Excuse me. So put 00 for the year that you were born. And if they ask you at the interview, remember now the key is to get the interview. They ask you at the interview, they're like, Lori, you put 00 on here. I don't think you're 25 years old. Then what I would say to them is, you know what? One thing that I am is I'm a company person, and bless your heart, you just didn't know any better. You're not supposed to ask my birth date until the first day of employment. And then it's regards to benefits. Now, you don't say that, it's regards to benefits. You don't say that part, but you're looking out for the company and they're not supposed to be asking you that. Okay. Jennifer, did I answer that question? I think I kind of got off on down a rabbit hole. I hope I answered the question. Okay, so let's move on. So let's talk a little bit about teleconferencing. Okay, first off, we're doing it right now. It's one of the reasons that I have you guys write in the chat is because some people have never done it before. Age has nothing to do with that. It has more to do with the evolution of how our technology is changing. Then the second thing, Jennifer, I think your mic is still on because
Oh,
I can
so
hear you
sorry.
typing. You're a fast typer, by the way. Okay, second part is that we can help you to set up your background. Now, I purposely have my background set up like this. I have a beautiful office with big windows. I would not use this background as if I were interviewing because it can be very distracting. So there's all kinds of different things going on here behind me. Also, sometimes when the sun is shining, it is too much light. Not for me. I'm talking about when I'm doing a workshop or when I'm interviewing. It would wash me out. Or if it's a real gloomy day, it's not enough light. And then what the employers have told me is that if it's dark or they come in presenting and everything is dark, that they're hiding something. Well, good grief. Good to know. One of the services that we offer too is that we will do a mock interview with you. So I can critique some of this stuff. I'll give you a good example. I just did a mock interview yesterday and I said to the gentleman, I said, so you must really like playing video games, huh? He's like, how do you know that? And I said, because in your background, it's all full of video games. And he's like, I never even noticed that. He said, I didn't realize that you would be able to see that. Another thing about your background is employers have said they don't want it blurred. They would prefer it to be natural and real. They also, I could make my background right now to make it look like I'm in Paris. They don't want that either. So good to know, right? But again, reach out to us because we can help you with this. So you also, it is very important to dress as you would face to face. Now, this is something more in our mind, but I think that it's very, very important. So if I'm going to do a mock interview with you, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to wear the outfit you're going to wear at the interview. And I'm going to tell you how it's presenting online. So I've had some people who have had great big hoop earrings, uh, big scarf, even a hat. You don't want anything that is going to distract the interviewer. You want them to be paying attention to what you're saying, not what you're wearing. Pay attention to what you're saying, not what's going on in your background. That's why it's important for you to dress as you would face to face, all the way down to your shoes. Make sure you practice good eye contact and smile. Boy, I tell you, when we're interviewing, it's easy to get really nervous and not smile at all. I also want to note that, if I were to talk to you this way during the workshop the whole time, it's very frustrating. I practice good eye contact when I'm doing this workshop because I want to make that connection with you, and you want to do the same thing when you're interviewing. In addition to that, it's very important that you know where your camera is. uh, Sometimes your camera may be in a different spot, or you have a webcam where it's on a different shelf. But point is, you want to know where it is so that that's where you're practicing the good eye contact. Now, please note that I'm not doing this. Okay. Um, I'm looking at you as if I was really looking at a person because I am. Make sure your audio is good. How you can do that too is you could do the mock interview with us and test it. Super important to make sure you have a backup phone number handy. Now, let me tell you why. So, one of the beautiful things about Jennifer and I when we do workshops is we have the ability to call each other and troubleshoot in case something isn't working before the workshop starts. So, we have that backup phone number to be able to contact and connect with each other if we need to. I'm going to give you a real life example. So, I had a gentleman that came in and know that you can use these resources at your local career force. He came in and used one of our interview rooms for him to actually interview. It was a virtual interview, so we had done a mock interview previous to that. We also, when he came in, him and I made sure that his audio was working good, that background looked good, that everything was ready. When the interview started, about 5 minutes in, he comes rushing out of the interview room yelling, "Glory, glory, the internet stopped." Like, what? And it had never done that before. And, to be honest with you, I think it's only done it one other time since then. But lo and behold, it was during the interview. He said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Well, do you have the backup phone number?" And he said, "Yes, I do." I said, "First off, I want you to stop for a second here and take a deep breath." This kind of stuff happens all the time on the job. So this is an opportunity for you instead of it being an obstacle. And the opportunity piece is you are going to call that backup phone number, and with a smile on your face, you're going to talk about how great you are at handling any kind of troubleshooting that comes up. And you're going to do it with a smile on your face because you're presenting yourself as being friendly. He's like, "Okay, okay, fine, I'll try it." So he went in, and lo and behold, he got hired. So know that some of those things are very, very important that we kind of just take for granted, or we don't think about our background, or we don't think about how it's going to present virtually. One of the most important things that has changed is you. So, how do you feel about looking for employment right now, and do those feelings show? I work with so many people who have been wronged on the job. They either quit or are fired or whatever, who cares? They don't have that job anymore. But instead, what they do is they are so wounded, and I understand it hurts. I totally understand. But they're so wounded that they bring that wound into the new job. You can't do that. And the reason is when I'm talking to employers, I'm asking them straight up, what's the most important thing to you when you're hiring someone, Mr. Employer? And they'll say two things. Lori, the first thing that's very important to me is my reputation. If you're bringing that baggage in from your previous job, even though it's all true, even though you were wronged, even though it was a horrible experience to go through, if you're bringing that into the interview, that employer whose reputation matters is thinking to himself, good grief, what are you going to say about us if you don't work out? I'd rather hire somebody who doesn't know how to do this job and teach them than have somebody who's going to walk around town hurting my reputation. Interesting, huh? Then the second thing that is the most important thing to employers is that they're wondering, are you going to get along? Are you going to come in and get along with the great employees I already have in place, or are you going to come in and upset the apple cart? So I want to ask you a question, and I'd like for you to write the answer in the chat, and the answer is either yes or no. How many of you, or excuse me, have you worked with a difficult employee, a difficult colleague? The answer is either yes or no. And Jenny, I would like for you to tell me what the answers are coming up.
A lot of yeses.
Do you see any no's?
No, not yet.
Okay. You know, one of the reasons that I asked this question at the workshop is so that it makes you aware, or as a reminder that all of us have worked with difficult colleagues. Taking a step further, most of us work with difficult colleagues from time to time. Now, the thing is that Mr. or Mrs. Employer, when they're interviewing you, are trying to figure out, are you the difficult employee? So I also want you to be able to talk about the skills that you've since you were last interviewed. You know, I work with people who they'll say to me, "Oh, Glory." So when the pandemic hit, I took care of my parents, and they both passed away due to COVID. This is real life stuff, you guys. I just think that is so sad. But what a blessing that the person could take care of their parents through their end of life. No, my point out of this is they will say to me, so they'll tell me that, and then they'll say, so I haven't worked for the last 2 years because I was taking care of them. Haven't worked. Good grief. In my world, you've done the most important job ever. When you're taking care of someone, one, that's called a caregiver. Two, you're not sitting around eating chocolate bonbons, watching TV while you're taking care of two people who have COVID. Good grief. There's medicine application or administration. There's getting them back and forth to their appointments. There's setting up respite. They're setting up. You see what I mean? I can work individually with you and talk to you about all those skills, but you need to recognize them as skills so that you can talk about it at the interview instead of making it sound like you've been just sitting at home, not doing anything for the last 2 years. So again, those are some of the resources that we think, well, that's not considered a job, but it is. It's also really important for you to be able to tell me what makes you the best candidate. What makes you the best person for this job? Do you believe you're the best person for this job? Some of those questions we just don't ask ourselves. They're very, very important. Some really common mistakes that people make is being seen as overqualified. You know, my opinion is that when an employer tells us, "So, Glory, we've decided to hire someone else because we considered hiring you, but we thought that you were probably overqualified." That's their nice way of saying we don't think you're going to stay with us very long because you're the forklift driver and you're going to go get that forklift job as soon as they offer it to you because obviously they pay more than my job. Now they're not going to say that to you. Instead, they say you're overqualified. Another common mistake is, boy, looking for a job is a job, and I call it the worst job. Losing that momentum. You know, it's really easy for you to be hard on yourself. Um, a lot of us were raised, again, getting back to this, you're supposed to be humble and not prideful, and pride comes before a fall. Well, you know what? Then it's easy to spiral down into that rabbit hole where you're negative about yourself. So you're negative about everything else around you. You're negative about yourself, and you're telling yourself, I'm too old. I'm never going to get a job. No one's going to hire me. Yeah, if you keep thinking that way, you're probably right. How about not updating your skills? You know, when I interviewed for this job, one of the questions that they asked me was, what is your greatest weakness? And this is true. I really told them this, and this is the true story, and I got the job. I said, one of my greatest weaknesses is Excel sheets. don't really care to do them, but I do know how important they are for this position. I have to keep track of how many miles I drove the company car, how many people attended the workshops, all that information. So I said, I do understand how important Excel spreadsheets are in this position. So I want to let you know that I am taking a refresher course before my first day of employment. So you own it, but you turn it back into something positive. But are you updating your skills? Are you looking at it as you're updating your skills? Sometimes when you're going on minnesotaworks.net and you're looking for jobs and you're checking out different industries, do you know that's called research? If you're struggling with this and you think, "Oh, I don't know if I've updated any of my skills," reach out to us because I know that if I challenge you a little bit, you're going to go, "Wow, I didn't consider that a skill." But yeah, I'm really good at doing it. Are you listing too many accomplishments that are not related? Let me give you another example. So I had a gentleman, bless his heart, he had a resume, and on the bottom of it, it talked about him being a commercial driver, truck driver, CDL. He had a CDL license, um, but he hadn't driven truck for over 20 years. So I asked him, he called me and he said, Glory, something's going wrong because I've sent out many resumes and I'm not getting any interviews. So did you take a look at my resume? First off, I want you to consider that if you're sending out 5 resumes, you should be getting at least 2, maybe 3 interviews. And if you're not, stop sending your resumes out and let us review them. Many people live in small towns. I don't want you to burn up all those bridges when here we just need to adjust your resume a little bit because you've got too many accomplishments on there or you have unrelated accomplishments on there. So let's get back to my truck driver. I asked him when I'm looking at his resume, I said, I'm curious, why do you have this truck driving job on here? One, it was over 20 years ago. And two, are you planning on going back into truck driving? No. He said, no, absolutely not. I just am very, very proud that I got my CDL. I said, you know what, that is something to be proud of. But if you're not going back into truck driving, you need to take it off your resume because the person who's looking at your resume, whether it be AI or a human being, they're thinking to themselves, um, this person's more than likely going to go back into truck driving, so I'm not going to even interview them. Keep those non-related accomplishments off your resume. And I want you to kind of apply this, what I've just taught you, because it is so valuable to get you the interview. Now, how are you talking? Are you listening? I always say the good Lord gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. I had a gentleman recently who, on his resume, he worked for a company and was vice president. When he came in, he said, Glory, I don't understand. I'm not getting any interviews and I'm applying for these jobs that um, don't even require, they do require high school graduation, but that's it. And he said, I said, well, first off, why are you going into those types of jobs? He said, I don't want to be a vice president. I don't want to have that responsibility. The stress was killing me. I want to go into something where I can go and do a really good job. And at the end of the day, I can go home and be with my family. I don't want this high expectations on my life anymore. I said, okay, well, if that's true, then you need to remove vice president off of your resume. She's like, what? But I'm proud of that. Yeah, it gets back to there isn't anybody that's going to hire you at a gas station, for instance, when they see you've been a vice president. They're one, it's a big red flag. They're wondering what is up with that. And then two, they're thinking, well, as soon as you get some big corporate job, you're bailing on me. And I'm not putting all that money into training you on how to do the job. Again, I'd rather hire someone that I can teach how to do the job than some big vice president who's going to come in and act like they're still in charge. Note and good point taken. Okay. Losing momentum. So, you know what, Jennifer? I just want to check in with you again to see how the questions are going.
Yeah. So we did get a question here. It says, what if I need a career change, but all my life in the resume is on another career? How do I adapt the resume to the situation?
Very, very excellent question. So, first off, I want you to look at it in your mind like transferring skills. But second off, to give you a really good answer, I want you to reach out to your local career force because that's one of our expertise. The job that you want to go into, I would love to have a conversation with you more about what type of job is it. And for time, we don't have time to do that right now. Um, But many of the jobs and the passions that we want to go into and get out of the old industry, a lot of the things that we used to do in the old industry, we can transfer into the new job. So again, that's something that is a really specific answer, and I want to give you a good answer. So reach out to your local career force. Jennifer, I got time probably for one more here.
Okay. Do you believe that younger employers slash interviewers have the same opinions about applicant work experience, maturity, loyalty, and dedication, etc.? Do you need to change your tune if you're being interviewed by someone 30 and younger?
So first off, I want you to realize that the wisdom we have, we paid a high price for. So if I have a 30-year-old interviewing me, first off, I'm going to do everything I can to make a connection with them. So I'm going to find out what are 30-year-olds interested in right now. Do I know for sure the person who's interviewing me? Am I going to know what they're interested in? Probably not. So I might end up doing some assuming, or I could Google it. What's the most common thing a 30-year-old is interested in right now? The truth is a lot of times we don't even know who's going to be interviewing us, let alone their age. But what I want you to do is I want you to go in and make that connection with whoever is interviewing you, regardless of their age. Make that connection with them. So what I mean by that is I'm friendly. I will compliment them, and it's genuine and sincere. Don't make it up. I would say something like, "So how long have you been working here? And do you like it? What's your favorite thing about working here?" But I'm making that connection with the person. A lot of times when you have a 30-year-old and we come in as seasoned employees, we don't even realize it, but we're intimidating them. Many of us are the same age as their parents. Let's get real. So it's important that when you are being interviewed by a younger person, that you treat them with just as much respect as you do everybody else. But in addition to that, it's important for you to let that person know that I not only have the wisdom that I paid a high price for, but I want to let you know that I will do the job the way you want me to do it. Nobody else says that. What they say instead is that they clasp their arms like, "Oh, that's not the way I was taught," or "That's not the way I know how to do it," or "Let her do it. That's not in my job description." You see how we differ? We are the type of people who we go in and we do the job, we do it to the best of our ability. Not only that, we do it the way the employer wants it, and they don't need to babysit us. And you can say that. You can say, "You don't need to treat me as a babysitter where you need to come in and babysit and make sure everything that you want me to do is done, because I can guarantee you that I will do it." And I'll take it a step further. If I don't know how to do it, I'm not scared to ask for help. Do you see how hardly anybody interviews that way? And do you also see that age has nothing to do with this? When you bring up age, are you bringing it up in your mind and blaming the interviewer? Now, here's the thing. The interviewer can't ask you how old you are. But you tell me when I'm interviewing you. You'll say stuff to me. I'll say, "Tell me about yourself." And here's what you say. "Well, I'm 55 years old. I was born in so and so. I've been married for this many years. I don't have any kids anymore. They left the house. And I just need a job till I retire." I'm serious. I'm not faking. That's what you tell me. So, is your narrative being negative to yourself as well? Are you updating your skills? And again, we talked a little bit about the dislocated worker program. I'm not going to get into detail about that, but if there's something where, let's say you wanted to take a class or update your skills, you may qualify for the dislocated worker program. There's also the Coursera. Now, Coursera is an online platform that has many, many different free certificates out there, but it also has a pop-up box that comes up all the time. And what it says is, um, if you want to workshops and certificates. I don't recommend that you do that you sign up for the $49 a month, but dig around in there and find some of these free certificates because they're very helpful. And then once you get the certificate, you can put that on your resume. So you know what, Jennifer? It looks to me like we're down to 7 minutes for questions. So I'm hoping you got some questions.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a lot. I kind of saved a lot of them for the
Okay.
last. Um, So there was a question that came in. How would you change the job title without being untruthful?
So change the job title. Let me give you a good example. Let's say that your last job, your job title was customer service. And now you are applying for a new job that they call it customer representative. To me, customer service and customer representative are same or similar, but according to AI, they're not. Uh, Also, you don't know for sure if it's going through the applicant tracking system to get to a real human being to look at your resume. So if your last job you were customer service and you're applying for a customer representative job, I would change my job title to customer service. Trust me, if somebody were to call me and ask me for a reference on you, and they're like, well, so was John's job title customer service or customer representative? I don't care. I'm not going to ask you that. I'm not going to find out that information. Deal is that you convince me you're the best person for the job. That's what matters.
And then the next question is, if my last 10 years are at a higher level than what I'm looking for, what should my resume say about a job title?
You know, that's really an individual specific question. So I think I can give you a better answer if I were to talk to you after the workshop or reach out to your local career force and ask for workforce development representative and talk to that person. I can't give it, I don't have enough information to give you a good answer.
Okay, and then the next question is, what do you say when they ask if you have been fired?
Okay, so this one you need to practice in front of the mirror. Um, Typically, they don't ask you, have you ever been fired? But sometimes they'll ask you, why did you leave your last job? But let's just throw it out there and say they do ask you, have you ever been fired? What I want you to say, even if you have been fired, is I want you to say, um, I was involuntarily separated. And you can say, as a result, it has brought me here to you today. You do not use the words yourself, I was fired. Those don't ever come out of your mouth anymore. Okay. Now, let's say that your last job, say you got fired from your last job, and I asked job straight up, were you ever fired or why'd you leave your last job? I would say, you know what? I left my last job because I was involuntarily separated. One of the things that was happening was that they weren't utilizing all my skills. So as a result, it has brought me here to you today. Now, the only way that you can say that and be sincere about it is you need to practice this one in front of the mirror. Seriously, I had to practice it in front of the mirror in order to do this workshop because if I'm looking like I'm having a root canal when I'm saying it, you're not going to believe me. So again, some of this, your answers, they might not flow freely, but reach out to us because we can help you. Jennifer, I think we got time probably for one more question.
Okay, it says, I leave out the graduation date on resumes and applications if it is not needed. Should I tell the recruiter that I'm not disclosing? I feel it would take me out of consideration.
So I'm curious, is that recruiter asking you how old you are? Because you shouldn't have to tell the recruiter anything in regards to your age. If they're asking you what year you graduated, I would ask them, why do you need to know that? Does that have something to do with the job? Especially when you're talking to a recruiter. You're not going to do that at the interview. I know that when the recruiter's talking to you, that is sort of part of the interview, but some of these recruiters, they go too far. They ask too much and they know better. But it's if they ask you something, so let me give you an example. I can't legally, when I'm interviewing you, asking you your age, but I might say something to you like, what year did you graduate? Well, I can figure out your age then. But really, what does that have to do with the job? Unless it is directly related to the job, the year I graduated doesn't have anything to do with the job. Take it a step further. So I have people who they graduated, I'm just making this up. They graduated with their bachelor's degree in 2000. All right. And then they ended up getting a job and they've been working the whole time since then. Um, I didn't, when I got a new job, I didn't lose all those skills that I had learned from the previous job. You know, when I turned 59 years old, it's not like the old brain froze up there and that I lost everything, all the wisdom I had. but yet we kind of act that way. So they don't need to know the year I graduated. What they need to know is that I'm the best person for the job. I can come in and do the job the way they want it done. I can make them a lot of money, and in turn, I'll make some money too. And not only that, I'll do the job the way you want it done. Jennifer, we're down to 2 minutes, so can you give me a short question?
Yeah, yeah, this is a short question.
Okay.
It was just
Okay.
asking for recommended sites other than minnesotaworks.net.
Okay. So I would say Career One Stop is a wonderful Career Force MN. And then, you guys come to work for us. So that website, Jennifer, is mn.gov, G-O-V, and then /MMB/careers. Come to work for us. We have all kinds of different positions that are open through the state of Minnesota, and it is a fantastic job. Excellent colleagues and great benefits, great pay. And we don't care how old you are. We just want to make sure you can come in and do the job. So it is now 10:59. I just want to first thank you for attending this workshop. I'm really hoping that it has helped you. I know that I couldn't get specific on some of the answers that you were asking for your questions, but I can really help you, and we can help you throughout the state of Minnesota at your local career force, really answer some of these questions so that you can feel confident. One of the great things about doing a mock interview is it raises that confidence level. And it also, what I love about doing a mock interview is it teaches you where to start and where to stop on your answers. So I am excited to see you out in the workforce. Thank you for attending. Look for that follow-up email that will be coming in the next, either this afternoon or tomorrow. And bless you out there.
Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you for coming. Bye.